get through 5 and 6, you have a shot at 7 and 8, but only if you can get through 5 and 6. So 7 and 8 are twilight kind of things, things that will have to be fought for and sought after, but attainable nonetheless. Now, I met a guy named Dudley Callison years ago, and he told the story of how he got engaged, and here's how he got engaged. He picked up his girl in his car, and they drove that car out to a lake, and then they got in this canoe. He put him in this canoe, and they canoed out to this little island in the middle of the lake, and there in the middle of the lake there was dinner set up for him, and he got some college interns. Intern is Greek word for slave, and they served him. They brought him dinner and served him the whole meal, and so they had this little kind of romantic dinner out there, and then the speedboat comes flying up, hauling up, and then gets there, and so they all get on the speedboat, and they run around the lake for a while, and they just buzz all around the lake, and then they come back, and there's a limo waiting for them. And so they get in this limo, and the limo drives them out to this airfield. And when they got into the airfield, they get in this tiny little plane. They're in Arkansas somewhere, and they fly out, and they fly over kind of the hills of Arkansas, and then they land down in this little runway that's on grass. And there's this college up there, this really kind of beautiful college campus up there. And they walk in, and they walk into the chapel up there, and the chapel is all built for a wedding. The candles are lit, the flowers are in place, and there's a card with her name on it up front. So she goes up and she opens the card, and it basically says something like, "Will you?" or something, and she turns around, he's on the knee with the ring out, right? And then they leave there, and there's this old beat-up piece of trash truck waiting on them out there. I mean, barely runs. And so they get in this piece of junk truck, and they drive to dinner. And so at dinner, they sit down, and he begins to explain to her what all these vehicles meant. And so his car stood for normalcy, just kind of the normalcy of their lives, and that they were going to have just mostly normal days. And the canoe was those times they were both going to have to work together to get somewhere. And the speedboat was the fun they were going to have. And the limo was other people driving them. There were going to be these other times where they were affected by other people. And then the airplane was their spiritual journey together. And then the old beat-up truck was growing old together. And that was kind of how he proposed. And so I hear that story, and I'm like, two things. Don't ever tell that story again anywhere. Anywhere. Don't ever tell that story, all right? Because most of us are like, huh? All right? I mean, so don't tell that story. Don't ever tell that story. And then he would go on, and he would talk about these things he would do for his wife. Like he would, they got married on a 31st, and apparently there's 5 or 6 31sts every year. And so on the 31st, any 31st, he just gets a small present for his wife, and he puts it somewhere. He doesn't even give it to her. He just will put it in her car, put it, get her favorite perfume, just put it, not a bow, not a card, puts it in the bathroom, gets her favorite CD, puts it in the thing of her car, so she turns on, that CD starts. Oh, where'd this come from? Oh, all right. He does this, and so he says it's pretty funny that after 15 years of marriage now, that on the 31st, his wife will wake up and just start looking. Start looking in her closet, looking at the bathroom, looking. So as a college student, I mean, I was like, teach me, Jedi Master, teach me. All right? I'm not wired that way. I'm going to need some help. And so here's what we're going to talk about on this. Here's what we're going to talk about on this session. We're going to talk about romance, and really lengthy romance, not a romantic evening, but rather lengthy romance. Because honestly, with the right heart and the right spirit and the right connection, a cup of coffee in the morning could be romantic. And so that's why I said I think the only way you really got a shot at this at a real deep level is to survive 5 and 6. If you don't survive 5 and 6, 7 and 8 are very, very difficult to get to. All right? Most in our country, in this place, most marriages don't survive 5 and 6 to get to 7 and 8. They end up being two people who share a bed and share a checkbook, but little else, or just outright divorce. But let me point out a couple of things about romance out of this text. Go to 7:11 real quick. Let me start there, and then we'll go back to verse 1. Let's start in 11, because I want to point out two things here. Verse 11. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages. All right, so here's what he just did. Let's get out of town, baby. Let's get out of town. Let's you and me. Let's get out of town. Just you and me. Don't bring the babies. Put the dog in the kennel. You and me. All right? Now watch this. Let us go out early to the vineyards to see whether the vines have budded, where the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. Okay, so let's chat here. It's in springtime. All right? That's what we see. It's in springtime. When they get married. Oh, they got married in springtime. All right? So let me throw this out to you. And I know this is going to be wildly unpopular for females, but for males, it'll let you breathe. Romance is a discipline. For some of us, romance springs out of this well of creativity. We usually hate those guys. All right? The Dudley Callisons of the world. Now, I was like, I need to ask her how to get married, all right? Dudley's like, I need 7 vehicles. Most guys don't think I need 7 symbolic vehicles. We think, a really nice place to eat dinner. Red Lobster, all right? I mean, son of a truck driver. We're not thinking. So, but here's what he's doing. I'll say it this way. You don't fall into romance. You don't accidentally get romantic. It's planned. It's a discipline. And then the other thing I want you to see is it's almost always let out by the male. Almost always. The onus for romance falls on the male. It falls on the male. We're to take the lead in it, as in almost all things in marriage. All right? We're to take the lead in it. So here he goes saying, let's you and me get out of here. Let's you and me leave this place. Let's you and me leave all the stress, all the pressures, all the hurt. Let's you and me get out of here and reconnect. All right? Now, go back to 7:1. Here's what I want to do. I want to talk about 10 things that will help you deepen romance. That's what I want to do out of this text. And then I'll leave it up to you to take it and go. Almost all of these have to do with a man treating a woman, but it definitely goes vice versa. Let's pick it up in verse 1 of 7, all right? 7. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. All right, now I just want to stop there. How beautiful are your feet in sandals. Solomon, over the years, because this is an extended period of time past that honeymoon night, has become an expert on his wife, all right? Because now he's going, remember, he had never mentioned her feet before. And now all of a sudden he's going, oh, how beautiful are your feet. Here, let me try to throw this out. If we're going to grow in a romantic relationship, we have to become experts on our spouse. Now, let me tell you why. Because what one person finds romantic, the other one might get on their nerves. Like I can tell you this, on my staff, there are those of us who at night sit down with our wives with an open Bible and we pray, and those men, they prepare devotionals for their wives, and they sit down, they do it. Man, if I tried that, my wife would choke me, all right? My wife does not want me to lead her like I lead our church. And if she even catches wind that I'm trying to, it goes bad, all right? So I got to be undercover, all right? I got to be subversive. I got to go, what do you think this text means? Oh, well, I thought it meant, all right? So I've got to be shady. It's godliness, but it's shady godliness, all right? It's paradox. It's a paradox, like the poor or rich, that kind of thing, all right? So, and then you have to become an expert on your spouse. I think the only way to become an expert on your spouse is to listen. To actually listen to what they say. To actually listen to what they say. When I was dating Lauren, I knew pretty quick that Lauren was going to be who I was going to marry if she said yes. And I knew I was done. And one day she was just flipping through a magazine like it, I don't even forget where we were, at a doctor or some office waiting room, and she saw this ring in there that she was like, oh, look at that ring. It's just spectacular. It's just beautiful. And she closed the magazine. We did whatever we were doing, and we left and we went to the car. But I accidentally left my wallet in there. So when we got back to the car, I was like, oh, I left my wallet. And hold on. And I was like, all right, shoved that thing in my pocket. And then a year later, a buddy of mine who worked at a jewelry store, I gave him that picture and said, find the ring. Find it. Find where we can get this thing. And find it cheap. Don't steal it, but find it cheap. It looks expensive. You know what I do. Find it cheap, all right? So it's that ring. It's just a much smaller version of that ring. So this is what I'm talking about. We have to become an expert on our spouse. What do they like? What do they not like? What feeds them? What does not feed them? And this is where, once again, I want to continually and perpetually say, my problem with most marriage literature is it makes everybody the same. And I don't think, is that anybody's reality in here? I mean, it's just not. Do this for your spouse. Here's how she'll respond. Do this for your husband. He'll love it. And then you do that thing and they can't quit giggling. Huh? Yeah. So, okay, how do you beat that? Well, you become an expert in your spouse. You know over a period of time. You know their favorite restaurant. You know their favorite meal. You know their favorite bottle of Coke. You know, Baptist roots here. I'm just being careful. You know their favorite city. You know if she would or he would rather run a sprint triathlon together or spend a day at the spa or run the sprint triathlon and then go to the spa. I mean, you just need to know those things. You need to learn those things. What size shoes she wears. What size, right? His favorite sport team. Those are things you need to know. If we're going to continue on in a romantic relationship, if we're not going to get bored of each other and fall into the rut and the routine of life, you got to become an expert on your spouse. All right? Let's keep reading. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. I think this is another piece. I think not only do you have to become an expert in your spouse, but you have to get good at exalting your spouse. You got to get good at exalting your spouse. That kind of old ball and chain adage has to move over to wings. Wings. And I think this has several things. If you're exalting your spouse all the time, you become very contrarian to the world around you. All right? Very contrarian to the world around you. Because most people do not have tons of positive things to say about their spouses. They focus on the difficulties. They focus on and when you can elevate and go, oh man, my spouse is this, it's this, he does this well, she does this well. Which, by the way, if you become an expert in your spouse, you'll know what they do well. But we'll talk more here in a second about knowing what they do well and what they don't do well. All right, look at 7:1, and we'll keep reading. Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Once again, I wouldn't try that. Wouldn't try. Your hips are like rounded jewels. You tend to want to stay away from the word rounded altogether. And as you'll see in the next verse, don't ever use the word heap. But we'll get there. All right? We'll get there. Now, let me tell you why this is significant on the praise front. The shape of her hips, this is missed on us because we're sultry, but our culture is sultry. The shape of her hips would have been hidden. He is praising something that only he knows. It's pretty profound. It's one thing to tell your spouse something that everyone says about them. It's another to know them in such a way you can praise something that no one else can ever praise. That's a pretty profound moment when you know each other at this level. Once again, if you've been married 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, but it's been a difficult ride, this is something that occurs with years of work, with fighting fair, learning to fight fair. This is on the back end of 5 and 6. Please keep that in your mind, lest you get discouraged here. All right? He's saying something about her that only he would know. Look at 7:2. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Don't. All right? There are some cultural things occurring here. The belly and the navel is the center of the Hebrew emotion and energy and vitality here. And so what he's saying when he starts talking about her belly being a heap of wheat, her navel never lacking wine, is he's basically saying, he's acknowledging that I could not do what I do if you didn't do what you did. He does not demean or lower her role. All right? And as I got, my wife is a stay-at-home mom of our 2 children. We kind of talked about that a long time ago, that we'd be willing to live much lower in terms of what we drive and what we wore and where we lived in order for mama to be home with the baby. So we talked about that very early on. In fact, before we were married, we had that conversation, and we've kind of stuck to that. Now, in that, I don't ever let anybody say, nor do I ever say, that my wife doesn't have a job. And I guard her against anyone dare saying, oh, that must be great. That must be nice. Because I know that I've come home and walked in the door to, hey, can I help you out, honey? Yes, you can take your children and leave, all right? So I know. So I just grab them like, how long? How long? I mean, I don't know, like, for good? I mean, how long am I supposed to go? So I know the wear and tear of raising two small children and managing our home and then dealing with me and then So, I mean, listen, you add up everything she does. I mean, you price out what it would cost us for somebody to take care of our children all day. You price out what it would cost for somebody to come take care of our house. You price out what it would cost to have somebody come cook meals. You run that price, she makes more than I do. She makes much more than I do, all right? And so what he's saying here is that I can't be who God's asked me to be without you. It's pretty big. So there's a deep appreciation there. 7:3, we're going to hear about those fawns again. Let's go. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. There's just a pervasive gentleness with Solomon and his girl. It's everywhere. It's in his language. It's in how he touches her. It's and let me throw this out there. Men rarely seek out non-sexual touching. If we even institute sweet touching, we're usually going, I hope this is going somewhere. Forearm, your forearm is so great. Your back. All right, now it moves for us. Now women are very different. Women love non-sexual touching. Gentle, non-sexual. In our culture, it's called cuddling. Right? Women love to cuddle. Now, I always want to be careful here because, once again, I don't want to throw out a general rule. There are definitely, maybe 3 or 4 women in here like, I don't want to cuddle. Better bite my ear. Let's go, all right? You're here. And I drink to your husband. We call you blessed. All right? But on a whole, women love non-sexual touching. And I want you to keep in your mind, this is another one of those things that I just can't, I want to get into you as best as I can get into you, that this woman feels unbelievably safe with him. She feels unbelievably safe, unbelievably admired. And once again, he's very gentle with her. Very gentle with her. I think that's a profound, profound piece. All right? Let's look at 7:4. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabim. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks towards Damascus. We can keep going on this. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Just leave the nose alone altogether, usually is the best bet. Praise or not, just leave it alone. All right, don't even discuss it. But I think what you see here, specifically in your neck is a tower of ivory. He has an unreal amount of respect for her, and he longs to show her respect and extend to her respect, and never belittles. This is a really kind of beautiful thing that occurs in that he has learned, and I'll even add this, how she feels respected. How she feels respected, the things that he can do, the things that he can say, the things that he can, even the simple, easy things that he can do that make her feel respected. There's a deep level of respect there. And if you'll think through this, back to dating, it was one of the things that he had for her almost from day one, respect. You remember that? Where he begins to recount. She worked the fields. She thought the family was bigger than herself. She wasn't a woman who just took care of her outside. She had depth. All right? So this respect idea was something that was there from the beginning. It was there from the beginning. I've got to hurry because we've got another session. 7:4, you also see this delight. You also see this delight he has in her. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabim. Your nose is like the Tower of Lebanon, which looks towards Damascus. There's still this great delight in her. He continues to talk about her eyes, continues to talk about her soul, continues to talk about her personhood. There is still this delight in her. All right, let's keep. We're going to fly through this. We're going to fly through this last bit because I definitely want to get to 9 through 8, 1 through 4. All right, look at 4C. Your nose is like a Tower of Lebanon, which looks towards Damascus. This is just trust. There's a deep and abiding trust in him and in her. 5, your head crowns you like caramel. Your flowing locks are like purple. The king is held captive in its distresses. He basically says, after all these years, I'm still under your spell. I'm still under your spell. You've captivated. You've cast a spell on me. The queen has captivated my heart still to this day. Still to this day. There's still this very strong devotion to her. Look at 6. How beautiful and pleasant are you, O loved one, with all your delights. There's this deep and abiding devotion to her. Now, we're going to take 7 through 10, and we're going to talk about something that's profound, and if you're young, a little gross. Let's look. Now, keep in mind this. They've grown older, all right? They've done life, they fought. In fact, they fought a lot. If you know Ecclesiastes and you know kind of Solomon's journey, they have fought a lot at an unbelievable level. Now, listen to how they talk here. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. Listen to this. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the scent of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. Look at her response. It goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. Okay, listen to what's happened. They've grown older. Their bodies have begun to change. They've begun to sag. They've begun to plump. The ears and the nose never stop growing. You can imagine, all right? They have grown older. The bodies have shifted. The bodies have changed. But what's happening here? Look at your breasts. Look at your body. Look at your lips. There's still this immense desire for one another. Oh, you're like wine. What's her response? Goes over the lips smoothly. Right? Okay, so what is he talking about then? If now they're talking about sex, and now though it goes down the lips, goes down the throat smoothly. There ain't no awkwardness anymore. Oh, no. We know where the buttons are and the sequence in which they are to be pushed. All right? You don't get that year one. You're like, dang it, all right? All right? I mean, that don't come year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. I mean, now you know the buttons, you know when to push them, you know the sequence in which they're to be pushed, and that's what's happening here. He's talking about, oh, look at your body, look at your hips, look at your eyes, look at your... He's still absolutely impassioned for her, and she goes, and you're good at it. And you're good at it. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. We can skip that. Let's go out to the fields. Let's go 13. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and besides our doors are all choice fruit, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. Okay, here's what, I'll be careful here. No, I won't. I forget, I'm getting on a plane. Who cares? Do you see what she just said there? Because there's something pretty profound she just said there. She said, tonight, we'll do some old things, but I got a couple of new things I'm throwing at you tonight, too. I mean, like I said, there's something about this that's very, very cool in the thought of growing older and older and older and love getting steamier and steamier and steamier, and then at the same time, it's a little gross to me at 33. But that's what she just responded. She just responded to this, hey, I'm going to try some new things. Try some new things. Now, look at, we'll finish with 8, 1 through 4. Oh, that you were like a brother to me who nursed at my mother's breasts. If I found you outside, I would kiss you and none would despise. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother, she who used to teach me. I would give you spiced wine to drink and the juice of the pomegranate. His left hand is under my head and his right hands embrace me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Okay. At the back end of it all, she looks back on this journey and says, this is the way. This is the right way. One of the things that happens in Christian philosophy on sex and the biblical response of sex is that the message we get from the world is that we're missing out on and that we need to experience what it's like to be with more than one lover and that you never, right? That's kind of the message that we get. And you've got the queen at the back end of things who's grown old, has this man that still wants to touch her, still wants to kiss her. They're still trying new things in their 60s, who looks back and says to the virgins, do it the right way. I adjure you, do not stir up. Don't awaken love until it's time. If this is what you get by waiting, by doing it God's way, then do it God's way. There's a satisfaction in her. There's a depth in her. There's a gratitude in her that she throws back and says, we did it right. Now, let me encourage you men in this. In days of old, figuring out how to get romantic is difficult. All right, if you're not naturally bent that way, it's just difficult because even the things you would try would probably backfire, all right? Yeah, I mean, the monster truck rally sounded brilliant at the time, and it just went bad. Predator 3 came out. I mean, it was the #1 movie in the country. Who knew? But you don't get that excuse because God has given you a powerful, powerful ally. Google. And I think that there's no excuse. All right, and here's what I know. If you can know everybody on the rosters of your favorite sports team, you can find a couple of good ideas for your wife. And I can tell you what we do. Unapologetically, we brainstorm that trash, man. I get our whole young guys together. We get a dry erase board and go, Valentine's Day's coming. What are we doing? We need at least 6 ideas. Let's go. I mean, why not? We do that for everything else. And listen, any one of our wives that'd be like, I can't believe you guys do that. I want that to flow out of your heart. That's her sin, her issue, not ours. I mean, you get some guys that get together and try and put forth energy and put forth effort and you still nag them. You know that the Bible tells that man that it's better for him to die in the desert than to be married to you. That's what the Bible says. I'm just telling you that it's better for that dude to live on the corner of his house than for him to plan this evening for you and you find out that he had help doing that. And the Bible, the holy and inerrant word of God says, better it is for that man to die in the desert and have buzzards eat his flesh than to live in the house with that woman. So, 2 things. Men, get help. Get help. Get help. Women, you know who you married? You know who you married. You married a dude that loves a sports team. Has a tattoo of them, for God's sake, all right? And so now that you're married, don't expect him to become this thing that you knew he wasn't when he married him. It's unfair. So men, you work at it. Women, you be gracious. Be gracious.